Recorded March 13th, 2024. Welcome to the high flying episode of the Microsoft Security Insight Podcast. I am your pilot. I expect a smooth ride once we reach about 35,000 feet. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Hey,
You're the pilot? I thought you were the co-pilot.
well, somebody's got to do this, right? Co-pilot's not autopilot, right? And it's not the pilot. Hey, what is going on, Andrea? What is going on, Brody? What is going on, Roger? How's everyone doing today?
Pretty all right.
Pretty all right.
Who is Goose? Noodle. Oh, I'm glad Noodle's here because we're going to talk about something he's been asking about for months.
Months.
Yeah, months. He's not the only one, but he's the loudest. So
Noodle's the loudest.
Yeah.
All right. So
we're dressed up for a reason, or at least a couple of us are. I do love Andrea's hat. I'm super jealous of that. But and Brody, look at that background. That's great.
Thank you.
Why are we dressed up? What are
Rod.
we doing here? We're not actually co-hosts tonight. We're co-pilots. For what reason?
Oh well, today was Microsoft Secure, and a lot of announcements were made, and a lot of hype was made, and a lot of promises and things and innovation. So I don't know. I mean, we have a resident co-pilot expert on the cast. So Andrea, why are we dressed up today?
Yeah.
So as you just said, Microsoft Secure was today, and I think we had published 10 blog posts about Copilot for Security alone. So lots of excitement. We announced feature sets and pricing and the GA date. So I guess we should probably talk about all of those things. The GA date, who wants to say is?
Well, before we do,
okay,
I have something to say. This is, and we've been talking about this all along, we're going to take a brief hiatus on March 13th to celebrate the GA announcement, which we knew of, for Copilot for Security. However, this falls right in the middle, right smack dab in the middle of Women in Cybersecurity Month. So I thought, why not? I mean, there's probably a little bit of deception involved here, and I apologize for that ahead of time. However, why can't we do both things tonight, right? 2 episodes ago, we had Maria Young on, who is part of the Copilot CXE team, but we are fortunate on this team to actually have someone that works with Copilot for Security every single day. So I thought, hey, let's dual purpose show. We talk about Copilot for Security, but we do it in the realm of women in cybersecurity. So Andrea,
we have a special
Fisher,
guest.
welcome to the show. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Hey everyone, my name's Andrea Fisher. I am a Copilot for Security technical specialist, and I am joining these 3 so handsome and smart men to talk today about my favorite product, Copilot for Security.
Go on.
Hey.
Go on.
So there's the first question. Is it truly your favorite product?
I will say right now, I'm so excited about what it's going to be. Right now, as any new product, I'm sure we're going to be shaking out some bugs here and there, learning some lessons as we went or as we go. Just like when I first started, when we first started Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection so many years ago, I always say, we could tell you your house was on fire, but we couldn't help you. We didn't have any water, or we didn't have a Dalmatian or a fire truck. But within 2 years, right, we were in the Gartner upper right-hand quadrant. Right now, I think we're way ahead of that. Certainly first to market, and with some super great features that I think are going to make people's lives a whole lot easier.
Absolutely. So in the spirit of Women in Cyber Month, I mean, you're in the show, everybody knows you as a fixture in the show, but I don't think a lot of people really know how you got to being one of the top security persons at Microsoft, male or female. That's their respect, regardless of that. So how about we act as though nobody knows you? Tell us a little bit about you, Miss Fisher. How do you got to be the absolutely MDE goddess that you are, the security goddess that you are in all things. And Copilot is just something you picked up. Like, I can just do Copilot, right? Tell us a little bit about it to our listeners for their edification. Is that made up a
Oh,
word?
Lord. I don't know how far back I should go, but for anyone who is not, who didn't start out in IT, know that you certainly don't have to. My undergraduate degree is in journalism and my master's is in creative writing. So believe it or not, somehow I ended up here. But started out working on a help desk at Outback Steakhouse in their IT department, believe it or not. Worked my way up. 12 years ago, came to Microsoft as a technical specialist and have learned more and more about security over the last 20-something years. Look at these crazy guys. I feel like
I'm sweating to death in this thing. Oh my goodness!
bet.
No wonder these co-pilots or the old-time co-pilots, they kept warm. They had to keep warm. Oh, by the way, I thought I would. Yeah, there's my shirt for tonight. I thought I would do that.
What kind of show is this?
Take it out.
It's very risque, isn't it?
It's security OnlyFans.
I was going to say for people who are only listening, Rob, what does your shirt say?
Oh, my shirt says "Women in Cybersecurity." It's the Women in Cybersecurity group. They generally participate at things like Black Hat. It's an actual org that we support. So, and there you go. I feel better now. I was about ready to pass out. Sorry about that. It wasn't that I was passed out from boredom. It was I was passed out from sweating to death. I think that's the most I've actually sweated this winter. So there you go.
So with the event of Microsoft Secure, Andrea being the guest, we'll let her field all the questions and tell us some of the major announcements, Andrea, that came out about not only Copilot, but what Microsoft perceives as the future of AI as it relates to security. And because there were a bunch of projections and I won't say promises made, but forecasting on how this is going to change the landscape. It was sort of indicative of how the cloud changed the way we go about compute. Just like this is going to change the way we go about everything. And I know we're a security show. We'll stay fixated on first of all, we have to make sure we always say it correctly. Copilot for security, because there are 20 co-pilots, but we want to talk about it. So give us the rundown.
Well, I will say, the real idea is to embed AI into all of the solutions, whether that's Entra, Intune, Defender for Identity, right? The traditional security.microsoft.com console, right? So there are two pieces and parts to this idea of AI, and one is that embedding it in the tool itself, in the experience itself, which honestly I think is sort of the unsung hero. Everybody seems very excited about what we call the standalone console, which is where you go in and you ask the questions or give it what we call prompts, which is just another fancy way of trying to get information from the tool. But the embedded experience is meant to serve up stuff to you that you might not have even thought to ask, right? So it's going to summarize an incident for you, or it's going to help you create a policy. Like, I think this stuff for Intune is so exciting. You can literally, inside the Intune console itself, with its attachment to Copilot for Security, you can just ask it, say, create a compliance policy or a configuration policy preventing Mac users from using USB drives, right? Normally, you'd go to learn.microsoft.com, or maybe you just Bing it or Google it, and you would ask, and then you'd find an article or maybe 2 articles or 3 articles, and they're all a little bit different. You're gonna have to figure out which is the right way to do it. So, it's probably gonna take you a couple of hours, if not a couple of days, to figure out exactly what you want to do, test it out. Copilot Security, you're just gonna ask it a question, and it's going to pop up a policy for you. You're going to be able to see what the ramifications of that policy are. I just think that is going to be such a time saver for everyone. And then again, we talk about that holistic standalone portal where you could analyze a script. You could, honestly, my favorite part of the standalone portal, if anyone has ever done incident response, at the end of an incident, you have to do the paperwork, right? To write up, and depending on where you work, you have to write up the situation. Maybe you need screenshots. Maybe you need a Visio diagram. It just really depends on what you want. And maybe you have to do one that's specifically for the C-level execs, but maybe you also have to do a technical one, right, for your boss or whoever in the technical team. With Copilot for Security, we can literally say, provide me a summarization of this incident for a C-level executive. I need it to be 3 pages long, and I need bulleted points and a chart, right? You can be as prescriptive as you need to be. And that to me is really some of the great things we're going to be able to see here.
So I think I love that. And you know, I don't want to be that guy here, but I think one of the things that we sometimes it's more difficult to talk about. I think at Microsoft, we start talking about all these cool things we could do, and then all of a sudden, customer perspective, they seem to assume that it's going to replace everything. It's going to be the only tool we're going to need, and it does everything except the kitchen sink. It probably includes that a little bit later on. What can it not do? Is it does it replace an analyst? Is that our goal here? Is it, when we talk about co-pilots, obviously from augmenting, can it become the only tool that we use, or does it need other things plugged into it to actually work?
Well, I mean, I certainly think there's a specific reason we named it Copilot, right? Because we didn't design it. This is not meant to replace human beings. I mean, and honestly, I think we all always have that fear, whether it's they hire someone newer and younger on the team, or whether they invent PowerShell or VB script, right? Automation always scares us, that we think, oh my God, someone's going to do my job. But what it's really going to do, or what we hope it's going to do, is remove all of the boring parts of your job, right? It's going to help you be able to be more focused on higher level things. I know we keep using the term upskilling, right? Which is, so maybe your junior level analysts will be able to do the same kind of work that, you know, people who've had 5, 6, 10 years of experience can do.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there was more to the question, Rod, but I've already forgotten the other part.
Oh, no, I'm just, I'm thinking from the perspective, and I think customers, when we start talking about all this high and cool stuff, high in the sky stuff, I think sometimes customers get the wrong association in that we're creating this tool to replace everything, to replace all the tools. I think from my perspective, what I think is super cool about Copilot for Security, which, you know, I don't want to degrade all of our other co-pilots, but we do have a lot of co-pilots, right? And if you knew the back end for some of these things, you would scratch your head and say, that's just super confusing, because none of them really kind of talk together. They're not the same code base. The thing I love about Copilot for Security the most is that a customer can literally make it their own based on what inputs they have, or what plugins or skill sets or sources or whatever you want to call them these days. I was talking with my good buddies at Tanium a couple weeks ago. They provided me some actual prompts for the prompt library that I'm building. And they have an excellent plugin that plugs directly into Copilot for Security. It allows you to use their platform to query against, almost like Intune, which they work with Intune as well, but actually do or provide actions after the fact. So have Tanium go do this thing after we identify this thing, right? So the thing I love about it is it's literally a security stack. It's just a stack that you plug things into, so it can become how you start using it today. By 6 months from now, it could be a completely different tool just because of what you plugged into it.
Yeah, my excitement is the things that haven't been announced. But if you're one of these technologists, forecasters, it's going to get where you build outstanding operational or standard engagement procedures, you know, SEPs, where you may not want it to take deliberate actions, but you would want it to advise, where you set it up where you don't ask it anymore. You tell it any incident that comes across, you start the investigation, okay? And you can work alongside of it by meaning I am going to manually go in and triage this particular incident and work through it. At the same time, Copilot may be doing it. And you can, I can imagine where it's going to go, whereas you say, hey, if these alerts are coming in, I'd like for you to automatically triage, investigate, and give a hypothetical resolution or a series of that. Now, right now, you have to go in and tell it to do these things. You can imagine where it's going to go. And when these incidents happen, it's going to take SOAR to a different level, right? You'll be able to do these things. And so it's going to help with everything from metrics, from incident to closure, uh, being able to compare and actually look at how it would have closed a particular series of incidents versus an experienced person doing it. And that's not to say who's better. It is to say we came up with two different paths of resolution. Are they both the same? Or we came up with two different hypotheses of what if had has happened. I'm more thrilled about if it can come back and say, I think this is what happened, right? You guys think that's something down the line that's going to be sooner than later? Being able to do that thing, Brody. Since you got Jeff Bezos behind you.
Mute button. I hope that is a future feature. I mean, honestly, I'm just happy to be able to. I would love to be at home and be able to ask using my voice queries and whatnot. Hands-free security operations, honestly, is what I'm looking forward to.
So I have tested this on mobile, right? So I have Copilot for Security, and it's you can do it. It's not real graceful right now just because of the way it's developed, but it'll get there eventually. But yeah, you can do the same thing on your mobile device. It works pretty well. So here's the thing I don't think Noodle has actually asked, and I'm going to throw this over to Andrea again since she's our woman in cybersecurity this month. Noodle's not asked it yet, and I'm super surprised. I don't think we made enough talk about it today where anybody actually understands it. What is an SCU, and how does this thing that Microsoft made up, how does that play into Copilot for Security pricing? Because this is actually huge news, because I thought it was going to be a little bit different.
So yeah, today we announced the general availability is going to be on April 1st, where you will be able to actually go into the Azure portal and purchase Copilot for Security. But the question is, how is it going to be charged? How would I get paid? And as Rod was just explaining, there's a whole new method for pricing of Copilot for Security, and it's called a security compute unit. So the way I kind of have been thinking about it in my brain is you are paying for the amount of processing power you're going to be using when you use this tool, right? So you're going to be able to buy a security compute unit, and you will be paying by the hour. And once you commit to, let's say we decide that we need 3 of these security compute units, you will pay $4 per hour, 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, right? So if you multiply that all out, 3 SCUs times $4 times 365, that's around $105K. So you can imagine sticking your foot in the door for, the beginning of artificial intelligence for 100K, which I think is a pretty sweet option personally.
So when you say SCU, or this compute unit, is that almost like that's assigned to a single profile or a single person, or is that just, how's that work?
It's actually subscription based. So you will enable, when you go into the portal, you'll enable it for a certain subscription or even a certain work group inside that subscription. And then it's not per user. It's not
cool.
The way we license things like Defender for Endpoint or Defender for Office. And it's not consumption based the way we do Azure. Typically, it's sort of this mishmash of the two. So you could have one person using all of the SCU power. You could have 100 people using the SCU power. So it really doesn't matter. It's going to be based inside that subscription usage.
So you're buying a preloaded debit card of a sort, or you're buying credits for your subscription, and individuals that have whatever level of access can consume those SCUs to be able to do computational, work and effort. my other question would be around that is, and I don't know if that was announced today, I might have missed it. If you have SEUs that are assigned to your subscription/tenant, how do you lock it down? Is this going to recognize RBAC based on a role? Because I don't really remember if you have a co-pilot role inside your tenant. Is that did they create roles now for that?
There will be. There will be 3 new roles for Copilot for security, but they're going to be kind of like the rules for Sentinel, right? So where you have the specific contributor reader, but that's going to allow you to change settings and things like that. But for users, I think the thing that people are most concerned about is if my security person suddenly will have access to things they did not have before. So like in Entra or Intune or something like that, will they have elevated rights than they did? And that won't be the case. We use what we call on behalf of authentication. So if I'm inside the portal of Security Copilot.microsoft.com and I ask a question that should be answered by the Entra plugin or by the Intune plugin or by XDR, it's only going to bring back to me stuff that I should be able to see based on my rights.
Yeah, and I would suspect that once those roles are defined, this would be an excellent case to use privileged identity management. So while you can assign that role to them, they have to be assigned that role to be able to go request that role to be able to do it. The same way you would do GA and some of the other privileged roles, right? Because if everybody can do it, you buy a ton of SCUs and you look up a month later and they're all gone because Edward was playing around in it and say, what should I get my wife for anniversary? And next thing you know, you're out of that, right?
Well, it's not going to be able to answer that. Unfortunately, understand that this is very, very security specific. If you try to ask it what, get your wife for, they're going to tell you to shut down her account and lock up her PC.
Well, I will be very distinct in my prompt. What is a safe gift to give my wife so I don't get bust over the head for our anniversary? And they'll give me that.
Stephen has a question, Andrea.
Yep, I see it there. So right now, we have not really committed to something for a POC yet. So kind of like, it took us about 6 months before we figured out how to POC Sentinel 2, if you remember correctly, right? So for now, if you wanted to kick the tires in it, on April 1st, you'll be able to go in and buy 1 SCU. And that SCU is charged by the month, right? So you can mess around with it for a month and then turn it off if you decide you don't want to. I'll also say, so out of the gate, if I purchase 1 SCU, and somebody else, Noodle also asked, why would you buy 3 if you can run 100 users on a single security compute unit? Because like I said, you're kind of buying processing power, so you only get a certain amount, right? So it is possible that if you are prompting too often or the prompts are really, really long or sophisticated, that you'll run out of your SCU processing power. So you'll get a warning that it's going to tell you, hey, you're getting close to your limit, make sure that you're, asking the right things or using your prompts judiciously. Then you're going to get a block. And for the rest of that hour, you're going to be locked down. Again, I don't know how great this is going to be on knowing that it's like all of a sudden 59 is turning into the next minute, but that's the theory. If you are in the middle of an incident or you decide that you want more, someone with the right rights will be able to go into the portal and add. So if I had 1, they can add a second, they can add a third, right? Now remember, because we're billed by the hour for the month. So if I jump up from 1 to 3, right, I'm locked in for the month. I can go back in and drop down to 1, but because we'll see how that works long term, but that's the general idea for now is I'll go to 3 for the rest of the month. And then if I drop down, then I'll be back to 1 the next.
So these compute units, I would assume, and I forget what the actual number is per token, but these are based on tokens for that compute, right? So your strings and your prompts, based on the length of those, that's going to be a certain number of tokens, and that applies somehow, right?
Correct.
Okay.
But again, go ahead, Edward. I'm sorry.
I think they announced how much it was per hour. I don't remember.
It's $4 an hour.
$4 an hour. If I had to put my head around it, it sounds like if I had to really break it down in layman's term, Let's assume that I'm the only person consuming it, and I am buying processing power to a GPU. And let's say that GPU runs at 100%, and I'm buying time against that 100%. And so when someone comes in, whether it be multiple users, someone is using, 50% of it for the hour. If two other people come in, the available compute left is 50%. If someone is running thing and consumes another 25, there's only 25. So you're buying, I think you're buying the way the processing efficiency is. It sounds like you get access with your SCU, but within that SCU, you can run up your compute power if someone's doing it too intensive. And as the prompts fall off, the compute power goes down and makes more compute available. Is that a good synopsis? I'm not sure.
So like we said, you're purchasing 1, 2, 5, whatever, right?
Mhm.
So you get that amount of SCU for that hour. You'll never be able to go over it.
Yeah.
Right. So there won't be any surprises on your bill, but you may get, you may hit a ceiling and not be able to work for a certain amount of time. That's really, I think, the key to think about. And it is literally per hour. Like people are like, well, what if I don't use it all day long? And then, at 4 o'clock, I want to use all of that power. No, it's going to be 1 hour, 24 hours a day.
That answers Noodle's question. We actually had another one kind of along those lines because I'm this way, right? I want to know. I'm a control freak when it comes to data and pricing and stuff. Will there be a cost forecast dashboard? That sounds kind of interesting.
So off the bat, there is a calculator, but literally what the calculator does is it picks your location, right? So, and right now I should also say it's only available, going to be as of April 1st, available in 4 locations, which is hang on a second, I have to look at my cheat sheet. It is East US, West Europe, UK South, and Australia East. And I hope they announced that today, and I'm not getting in trouble for saying that. So off the bat, the calculator is literally, you pick your location, it's how many hours times 4, or whatever your security compute union is for that region. So that's really, and you don't know what, you're just guessing how many you need. So at this point, we don't have a great predictor. But again, to me, it's kind of like we did with Sentinel, which is, we recommended that you turn it on for a few weeks and then look and see how it's going. And then you could adjust up or down. I'm hoping we're going to have something better soon. I know as the private preview customers, we get closer to the end with them. Right now, we can't share what they've been doing because of the privacy clauses. But as we get closer to the end of that, they may agree to share some of that. So we can talk about what a certain size company has been seeing in their tenants, and what kind of usage they have. Standby would be, I guess, my recommendation.
Well, it seems to me it's a kind of a standard Azure service because you go into the Azure console and enable the service and choose your SCUs. I'm going to say CSU. Oh my goodness, it's going to take a while. Is it SKU? Is it SCA? Is it like scissors? It's just Sue? Who knows?
Jeff.
But at the same time, it seems like we will be able to create workbooks for stuff like that because we have performance and cost-based workbooks. Also, I know that within Azure now there's an Azure Copilot which you can ask it all of your pricing questions now as well. So.
Yes, I saw that. That was pretty cool. I'm following some guy on YouTube, and he was throwing some really good hints out there about predictability of your purchase and your consumption based on services and microservices. And I liked it because it could go in and literally help you map out what your deployment looks like and what your footprint in Azure looks like, right? When you look at it that way, Andrew keeps making references to Sentinel. It was a trial and learn about how do you want to sort to guesstimate, your consumption. And some customers chose to go high at first and then realize what they were consuming and then come in low. Some customers came in low, realized they needed more, and bought high. And if you're familiar with Sentinel, there was a pay-as-you-go model, and then they went to a commitment model. I don't really know if the SEU consumption model is going to go that route, where I can buy and estimate how much I'm going to use, and if I come in too low, you buy more for the next go around when it's time to buy more consumption. But to all our listeners out there, for those who are actively maybe in the EAP early adoption program and those who are not, the way we fine tune this consumption model is your feedback. You know, tell Microsoft what is good in the same instance what you tell them that is bad. If you don't say anything and suffer in silence, we don't know how to adjust the pricing model, right? Don't say this sucks. Say this sucks and why, or say this is good. Oh, I didn't know this. So, for those who get into it, one thing that just frustrates me to no end when someone just goes, "Well, this is dumb." Well, don't say that. Tell us why this is dumb, and put your feedback in, because believe me, with the importance of this particular product and this launch and this initiative, all feedback is being looked at, right? We're trying to get it right, or the people that actually work on Andrew's team, they're trying to get it right. So I am consuming M365 Copilot in my personal tenant, and to me, it was sort of easy, right? You pay a yearly amount and you get it, but this is much different, right? Because it's actually going to be absolutely more user initiated about how you want to go about your security practicing to be able to do it. So I don't have as much access as Rod and Andrew in it, and I don't get to see a lot of the goodies, but I'm whatever the qualification is, eventually get in. I want to get in and play with it. I did do a couple of things that was sort of, we talked about already with the limited access, but I'm excited about it. I want to see what it is. We've said this on the show. It's the new shiny, right? And so you just go in and you play with the new shiny, and you keep doing it. But let me ask a different question.
That kind of plays to what Noodle was asking earlier. Do you have any recommendations? Obviously, I'm sure there's going to be some further recommendations after GA when the EAP's over, which will be a while. But it's going to be it's going to be just test it and determine what your actual requirements are.
I have a recommendation.
I think the way the best way that I can think of to determine that is, like Edward said, in the beginning, there's going to be some playing around, but really the sweet spot of the standalone, right, is for you to create your own prompt books. So if you have existing incident response procedures that you have, right, you've got a book, whatever you want to call it, right, a OneNote, whatever it is, and here's the first thing: if an incident happens, I go and I look at all of the users' account status. I see if they have MFA turned on. I see, if you walk through those steps and think about those, it doesn't matter how many people, that's not the thing. The thing is, how many prompts are you giving it? How many questions are you asking it? So if your prompt book is 13 steps, right? 2 steps, 13, whatever, or 3 really intensive ones, that's going to determine the SCU usage. So that's really the way to figure out what you're going to need.
I love that. That is super smart, because you're going to do those. You're going to have your own prompt books, and you will run those all the time, and you'll know what the cost of each what each prompt book is, right? So you will know. That's right.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say too. Like you'll eventually figure out the cost per operation, or per your daily task, or per your check-in in the morning, or your incident. And so then yeah, you're right, Rod. You can figure out kind of like a cost matrix against the activities, and then that can further work for your estimation on how much you need or may not need with regards to the SCUs. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So Noodle had a question. How does it work for MSSPs, and is it multi-tenant? Noodle, that's a great question. How about you stay tuned next month when we go into Partner Month, and we're going to highlight partners who are part of the Security Copilot MSSP program. They're going to be able to come in and tell you exactly how they are modifying and adjusting their business for the MSSP, managed XDR, managed security services to be able to do that. So we're not going to steal their thunder. There's a lot to be learned. We're still in March. It goes GA April 1st. Fool. And we'll see it from there. But definitely there is a MSSP play. I think you're going to be excited what we'll do next month, and the partners that we showcase how they are going to apply Security Copilot into the services that they already have. So stay tuned. I know that's not the definitive answer you want, but we do have an answer. But we wanted to come from literally the partners to tell you how they're going to do it.
One other thing though, before we move on, I'm sorry, for the pricing stuff, because this is something that gets asked a lot already anyway. What about, obviously it's not a licensing model, it's consumption, but what about licensing? Are there any prerequisites? Is there anything that Microsoft recommends that you license ahead of time? Like, I think MDTI license is included with it now, or but is it like P2? Is it,
Honestly, for the embedded experience, right, which is what we talked about, where you have access to it inside of Entra or Intune or inside security.microsoft.com. To the embedded experience, you need a product, right, one of those products, and an Azure subscription. So if you wanted to use the embedded stuff for Intune, but you've never had an Azure subscription, you're going to have to buy an Azure subscription because that's what you need to turn it on, right? But other than that, no requirements. For the standalone experience, kind of again, like with Sentinel, for today, the plugins that we have the most experience with are the Microsoft ones. So certainly for early access program for the early adopters, they were a lot of Defender for Endpoint users, a lot of Sentinel users. Some of it was with Intune and Entra, but you said it earlier, Rod, the goal for this is to become your orchestration platform. We have out of the box, and we can post this later, we've got over 100 partners already who are going to provide plugins. So that's, if you look at the list today, it's Splunk and it's Tanium, right? There's so many of them, right? There's, I'm looking at the list here, right? So we've got Cisco is going to be involved, Fortinet, Forescout, right? iBoss, Jamf, Qualys, Quest. So, they're going to have plugins. And again, just like with Sentinel, if you've got an API, you can write your own plugin, right? You don't have to wait around. I'm sure there's going to be a very rowdy GitHub like we have for Sentinel, where people are sharing whatever that they have done. So as long as you have an API to whatever your tool is, you can bring all that in and you can use large language models, right? So no requirements for products like that.
And I'd like to add on to what Andrea said. I think that's definitely true, but it's also going to be dependent, because I think for individuals like us on the actual call, Roger does a lot of stuff in his Git. Andrew's the second most Git, contributor. I think Brody and I contribute very little to our Gits. So that community stuff is going to be really good. Partners may not be so inclined to do that. That may be their secret sauce, so that their Gits won't give their plugins, because if you can copy their plugins, then why? And I know that support of that plugin is going to be a big thing. That when you put it in there, and if you think about, partners have the opportunity to really do well from a monetization standpoint, because remember, it's hard to buy something and someone can buy it once, but when you want ongoing support of it, if you're not skilled to go in and write the language or the intelligence for the plugin to enhance it, you're going to buy that support, right? Say, okay, if I buy this support, I'm not seeing this, but Rod and Andrew, tell me if I'm wrong on this. Is there a way to have your Git and not a way to fork it or pull from it if you don't pay?
Yep.
Yeah, and so I can imagine that's going to be a pay for pull or pay to fork to be able to do this, and that way you protect your intellectual property of a sort. So even if you steal it once, you won't be able to go back and get it again. And for those who do go out and take it and create their own, sub fork or sub Git, and then start, reselling somebody else stuff, I'm sure there's going to be repercussions, right? But the secret sauce is how you write these plugins for these things. We've seen it, Andrew. You and I were in the super boot camp or something, and I don't think they really determined what the language was. I know one of them, they gave us two languages, right, that they were going to write it in. I forget what it was. I'm JSON's probably not JSON, but maybe
Well,
Java.
your plugins are JSON components, so
Yeah,
you can
JSON
you
components.
can create your own.
Yeah,
But understandably, anything that becomes quote unquote official or a partner, it has to go through a vetting process.
Yes. So that way you prevent people, and that should resonate with consumers. Don't consume everybody's plugin if you don't know the fidelity of it and what it could do. What if you write a bad plugin and it consumes all your SEUs? It just runs through a loop, right?
Or you write a plugin and it sends your data somewhere.
It sends your data somewhere. So now, will we use AI to validate the security of a plugin? Who knows, right? We'll see. I'm excited about it. I mean, all of us have been on the call to see a lot of technology waves, the internet being one, right? That's the thing. And now the cloud was another. And now we're starting to see this AI thing. And there was some sub stuff. This is actually pretty cool. And I'm playing with the most basic, just the M365, Copilot. And if you haven't used the one that's in Bing, Copilot for vacations, the Copilot for cooking, and all that stuff is actually pretty cool. So if you go in there, that I thought I installed this extension, but I didn't realize that Bing had added those particular things in it. So it's actually pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, it's cool. Bing's running on the GPT-4 engine, so that's nice. If you're paying for the GPT-4, it's still nice because you can keep your context within the specific sessions that you have with it, or Bing will just forget who you are, right? But yeah, no, it is really cool. And Edward, I'm with you. I just want to. I was like, it's been all this hype and like announcements, and it's coming, and it's coming. It's like, okay, can I just let me have it in my lap so I can just play with it now, and start working on it with customers. I'm kind of just getting sick of waiting for announcements and stuff. But I can't wait to actually just work on it with customers right now. And my customer has it.
There's our list, by the way, for Dean.
List.
There you go, Dean.
So to our listeners and to those who are going to download the show, I'll give you this point here. Just my opinion. Do yourself a favor and go through the official learning content that's out there. Don't Easter egg on your dime. Nope, get a little bit of understanding of how the product works. There are learn material out there. Understand the basis of what language models are, how this thing works. Because if you go in and you spend your money and you try to learn it on your dime, remember that you are learning on the consumption that you're spending. So be deliberate in your prompts. I see that when you put in expert prompts, you get more defined and expert response. If you put in like, what is the secret to happiness? It's going to churn for an hour and come back like, well, I don't know. What makes you happy? So, is secret to happiness having money? Money can buy you likes. It may not be able to buy you happiness, right? So go through the learn. I was reluctant to go through it, but I have to because of what Andrea and I got going on here pretty soon. And learn the stuff. Don't just Easter egg it and beat up on it and say, well, it's dumb. Well, did you go through the official, learn documents, white papers, or whatever else out there? So, I'm not a big fan of that. I like to put my hands on stuff and try to learn it. I can't learn it on a consumption basis. I need to go learn it in advance. So, all right. Well, to everybody on the show, one more time, Andrea is the resident Copilot security expert. All questions will be fielded by her. So we will give her email address out. You can email her directly.
Yeah, it's edward.walton at what is that TF? No, sorry. So here's the other thing. So let's backtrack just a little bit. This is Women in Cybersecurity. Andrea, welcome to the show. Thank you for being our guest, and thank you for all your Copilot, fielding all the Copilot questions. How did you get your start in cybersecurity?
So, like I said, I was very lucky. In college, I had waited tables at Outback Steakhouse, which, if you don't know, the very first Outback Steakhouse is here in Tampa, and this is where their headquarters was. So after I decided I hated public relations and all the things I was doing with my journalism degree, I asked them if I could come intern in their IT department. They stuck me on the help desk. And I literally went to people's desks and was like, hey, my mouse isn't working, and I'd be like, okay, is it plugged in? Is it need batteries? I mean, I started from the ground up and just honestly picked up security over the years. I mean, some of it is just being around a long time. I know a lot of young people are like, oh, you know so much. And I'm like, it's because I'm old, right? So I've been an Exchange admin. I've been an Active Directory admin. I've been an SCCM admin. I've done SharePoint, right? I've done VMware, right? So just over the years, you gather all of that expertise. And then coming to Microsoft and covering security, that was really when I was lucky enough to, get in the ground floor of Defender for Endpoint, for Sentinel, learning incident response. So I think, for almost any of this, just being curious and being lucky enough to let people, people giving you opportunities I think it has
Mhm.
a lot to do with it too. So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I
Exchange admins.
Yeah, that's just
Yes.
everything that
Yes.
you've done. They're all thankless jobs. I'm thinking about help desk. I remember my old help desk days. I hate to think back to those days, really, because honestly, you wore a pager, you were on call all the time. That was super crazy. So obviously, you've come through. And how long have you worked at Microsoft?
So Microsoft, I just finished 12 years.
12 years. Wow,
Congrats.
that's
12
cool.
years.
Did you start in cybersecurity at Microsoft?
Like I said, I had bits and pieces of it, over the years. I never worked in the security team. I was always, once I moved up and was an admin or an engineer, whatever you wanted to call it, you're just picking up like, how do you secure Active Directory, right? That's not part of the, what people call the security team, right? Those are the people that sit on the, the SOC and all that stuff. But it's saying, how do we secure Exchange, patching, which I think people don't consider security. So all of those things were just things I picked up over time, work having to do antivirus, right? All of those things. So just learning over time. And like I said, I'm like Edward too, is getting my hands on stuff and breaking stuff.
Breaking Edwards
Yeah.
lab. Yeah.
Rick and I was laughing. We talked about that today. Andrew writes a mean exploitation script. You don't want any part of it. It's very persistent, right? So, um, we've asked our guests from last year and this year, but give advice on, a little bit of your history and as you watch this industry evolve, and it's gotten better. It's not perfect for, underrepresented groups. We're going to specifically talk about women here, regardless of, ethnicity, just women, period. Give some advice if you had to give three things to say, hey, I know it's hard, but if you do these things, it's going to better your chances to breaking into this. Don't be discouraged. You can do this, and that's assuming you have a genuine interest in doing this for a living, right? So, and someone's, so give some advice if you have any to give.
Yeah, I think I'll say a couple of things. Like one for sure is don't be afraid to ask for help or ask for a favor or ask someone, can I get 10 minutes of your time? Tell me about your job. Can I get, could we have coffee and meet about see how your career path? People love, in my experience, I've been super lucky that everyone has, that I have asked for help has been helpful to me. The other thing is try not to get frustrated and give up. It's super easy when you're the only. I was just, Edward, we were just out in Seattle, 160 people at an event, 11 of them were women. Sometimes it's just super frustrating. You either have to be one of the boys or get left out of certain things. But, if you love it, you just have to kind of, and again, ask for favors if something is not working right. Ask your male allies to help you out in certain situations, that's for sure. But mostly just don't give up, man. Just don't give up. If it's something you think you want to do, let's help you find a way.
Yeah, that's I've
Awesome
had to do that,
advice. Thank you.
and I think sometimes people have an imposter syndrome about asking for help. You really get to gauge someone's energy, commitment, and knowledge level by the way they ask for help. Because when someone's asking you for help, don't always assume it's something that you know. It sometimes makes you go figure out the answer. You get asked something, I'm like, I don't know. And then you get to respect that person. Like, that was a good question. I didn't know that. Let me go figure this out really quick. And that builds everybody up behind it. Um, you've been doing this a long time. Is what's happening in the cybersecurity landscape keeping you excited and engaged to continue to want to do this for another, 10, 15 years? If you want to do it 10, 15 years.
15 years seems like maybe, I don't know that anything's going to excite me that much, but I think, that's what I loved about IT is whether it's security or, consulting, right? You get to learn something new every day and there's always something new, right? So now we're all learning large language models and we're learning, about retrieval augmentation, right? And all of these kinds of things. So as long as I'm learning, I'm super excited. Also interested to see what the bad guys are going to be doing with AI and how that works out, or even what security looks like 10 years from now, right? Are we all going to have chips embedded in our ears or who knows what?
That's a thing. I'm surprised when you gave advice, you gave that one, you didn't give the other, which is one of your superpowers, I believe, is you are an exceptional writer, right? You write very well, right? It's ashamed to sometimes send you email because they come back with corrections on the email. Would you make that one of the things? Be really good at expressing what's in your head and your technical skill, because I still have a hard time conveying what's in my head to something that's readable without mistakes, much less say it. Would that be that's something that can be that non-technical thing that differentiates you and sets you aside from everyone else?
Well, I did used to think that was my superpower, but I think that I had that ability of a writing background to express myself clearly. But honestly, the things I've seen people do with ChatGPT, I think that that's not necessarily the case anymore.
Well, this
But
is the Andrea large language model. We should just, use that as
There
one
you
of our
go.
Copilot plugins. Yeah.
That's it. The ALM. Well,
It's
that's
been such
true.
a pleasure, my friends, to be your guest on Women in Cyber Month, but I do have to drop.
Yeah.
But you guys continue. I know you're going to finish this off with some great information for everybody. Love you guys, and I will see you soon. Bye. Do not hit end screen. Do not hit
Do not touch the red button, Brody.
Don't do a Brody.
He's about to. He's
going to do it. I'm going to do it.
So,
Brody, maybe you want to introduce us to that individual behind you. They're
No.
like over your shoulder the whole time. No,
we're having a customer meeting, and I cannot go anywhere else. So yeah,
yeah. But,
that is. They work at Microsoft, so that's all good.
But as we get ready to end the show, we'd like to say thank you for all those that to spend your time on this Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We feel privileged to have Andrea on here as a perspective, and definitely as a peer. She's taught me more about Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. I knew nothing about it before she joined the team on 2 roles ago on a different team. That both got me up to speed and inspired me to really get good at it. And the perspective that she brings from experience, the way she goes about learning. One of the things I like knowing about other security professionals, I like learning the way they learn, right? Because you'll get stuck in the way that you learn, and you can get frustrated when she and I, very hands-on person, right? I need a device. I need to do this. I need to touch this. But as we get away from actually hardware, direct access to code, and more into microservices and things that are overlays for intelligent compute behind language models and data repositories, you have to understand how to modify your learning methodologies. And I've had to do that. And you do that by learning how other people keep their skills sharp. I learned a lot from Wade Brody goes about his business. I learned a lot from Will Roderick, definitely from Andrea and others. And I hope that people learn the way I learn, right? Some of us do the same thing. So that will be my takeaway. You're going to have to understand how to change the way that you consume knowledge and use it, because artificial intelligence is one of the pillars of where we're going to go for the next 10 years. Quantum computing, data analytics is going to be one, and security is always going to be one, right? Now, will security be at the pinnacle of that? I don't think so. I think that it'll fall back behind some of the others, because quantum computing, AI, and data analytics makes you money. Security doesn't make you money.
No,
right? It
security
does
just takes up your time, and I think
business
that's a great way
enabler.
to. Yeah, it's an augmenter or a co-pilot, and I think that kind of relates to what we're talking about when we talk about cobots for security, because it literally comes alongside and gives you a different point of view. So it takes away all of your biases, right? To security, which is kind of
cool. So we're gonna do something rare. We're actually gonna end the show a little bit early. I'm gonna go ahead and just sort of put my glasses on right here. Is Roger and I get ready to taxi and take off. We're gonna give everybody free Microsoft Security Insight Pod Show podcast peanuts, and you'll get warm water and you'll like it.
Waffles,
Stroopwafels, and you'll like it. Yeah. We go back to our regular celebration of women in cyber next week. We're going to have an outstanding guest coming on.
Brody.
The month, Brody, look at that, so cool. The Terminator. And we appreciate everybody that's lending us their time from 5 to 6 Eastern Standard Time. We'll be back next week. I believe we have a show on Monday.
Monday. I will be in Denmark though, so I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll hold down the flame. You go ahead and take a nap. Brody and I we got the sticks. I have the con.
I would like to nap as well. Spring forward sucks.
Yes,
Spring
it
forward does. So to everyone, thanks so much. Please listen out for the Edwards Corner. I'm going to create a brief little video and or talk track about what we're going to be doing in April. We'll have some co-piloting in the course, and we'll also talk about some of the partners that are innovating with their relationship with Microsoft and Copilot for Security, as well as other co-pilots. Please join us on our Twitch, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Discord, YouTube, carrier pigeon, smoke signals, use the force, and everything else. And we're here. Thanks so much. And everyone have a great Wednesday. We're giving you 3 minutes back in your life.
Bye.